Hi guys, I'm Annabelle and welcome to Meeple Village. Today we're going to learn how to play Star Wars Dark Side Rising. There is already a full run through of this game on the channel, but if you want to learn how to play it, let's do it. Alright, in order to set up the game, the first thing we're going to do is going to prepare the Death Star. So you're going to set the centerpiece of the Death Star here, and then you're going to add the components, the individual components all around it. It doesn't matter what color goes where. All it matters is that the squares are face up. You don't want to put this side face up because that's when the Death Star component is completed. It will activate and turn on to the other side. So right now, for example, don't do that. Here we go. So our Death Star is completed. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to choose a team to play as, and there's 4 different ones. The card is going to tell you what is your rebel that you start with. So in the case of the blue team, it starts with Cassian Andor. You're also going to get the same symbol so that you can use it during the game to denote your team and where it's located. Right here, it tells you what your starting dice are. Of course, during the course of the game, you might get more dice or different dice. And then there's an ability that you're going to have if you roll a certain number of results on your dice. You're going to go into the asset deck and you're going to find your team leader. In the case of the blue team, you're looking for Cassian Andor. And once you find him, which of course he's all the way on the bottom of the deck, but once you find Cassian, you are going to take him out, and there he is, next to last, and assign him, put him on your side of like on your player aid, so right there. So that indicates that the blue team has Cassian to start with, and there's his token. And you will do that for as many players as you have. The game goes up to 4. Once everybody has a team and everybody has chosen their team leader, you're going to shuffle the deck of asset cards and you're going to place it in a spot on the board, preferably next to the deployment area. Also, you need to set up all of your tokens. I have damage tokens on this side. I have the tokens that go on the Death Star on this side. I have my Alliance tokens, which go face down, and my dice ready to go. Next up, you're going to create over here. You're going to put your main board, and you're going to put Darth Vader facing a random side. Doesn't matter where he starts. And after that, you're going to go ahead and deal out 9 cards, 3 per sector. So in this sector, with which is Edu, you're going to have 3 cards, and they might be all Imperials, there might be all Rebels. Definitely didn't do a great job of shuffling, but you're going to have 9 cards around the board, just like that. And with that, setup is complete, and you're ready to start. The first thing you're going to do on your turn is decide to what sector you want to go to, and that's going to affect what cards you can interact with. If I choose to go to Edu during my turn, I will place my token there and I can interact with these 3 cards and the cards that are on my player area, because those cards are also here in Edu. Next, the dark side is going to go, and we're going to start by rolling the Death Star dice, and according to what color you roll, you're going to put a component on one of the empty spots on the Death Star component. The dice is comprised of every color that is out on the board. So when you roll, you're going to be filling up these little spaces on the Death Star, and once they're filled up, well, the components are going to activate, flipping them to the other side. We'll talk about that more later. Next up, Darth Vader gets to roll his dice, and depending on what you roll, you're going to get to moving around on the board. This result moves him to the right. This result moves him to the left. If you roll this, you have to roll the Death Star dice once again, probably adding another cube to the Death Star components. Also, it's important to note that when you roll this result, Darth Vader does not move. If you happen to roll this result, Darth Vader does not move, and he activates all of the Imperial. When Darth Vader moves to the right or to the left, let's suppose he moves to the here, any Imperial that are on the sector that he's now facing get to activate. When you roll the Darth Vader symbol, every single Imperial is going to activate, causing you to probably add damage to Rebels or even to yourself. Remember, you are also, and your teammates are also on the sector. So if Darth Vader is inflicting damage here to Edu, any rebel on this sector will take 1 damage, and all of your teammates on your play area will also take 1 damage. There is no stopping Vader. Once the dark side has activated, it's your turn. You get to gather your dice and then roll it. Now, when you roll your dice, you can decide to leave a die or more aside and re-roll the other ones. If you roll your dice and you do not want to assign anything, but you want to keep re-rolling, you have to forfeit a dice. So you're going to be rolling less dice, and you can continue to re-roll and re-roll until you have to give up your last dice. Either you assign it or you have to give it up. What you're trying to do with your dice is to match the symbols that are out on the board. There are 2 things that you can do with the symbols. You can recruit rebels, or you can assign damage to the Imperials. In order to recruit this rebel, you will need to match the results on your dice to these 3. So you will need 2, 1, and 1. If you want to assign damage to the Death Trooper, you will need 2 of these symbols and 1 of these. And you will assign damage up here. After you're done assigning your dice anywhere on the board, we go to resolving everything that happened during the assign your dice phase of the turn. So let's say that you ended up like this and you had the matching symbols to actually give damage to Death Trooper. You would add a damage token to the Death Trooper at this time. It's important to know that you can only do that once per turn. So I cannot get the same 3 dice again and put another damage counter on him. Only once per turn per Imperial. Now, if the trooper had already a damage and I assign a damage during my turn, we just assign the damage there, and that's all you're going to do for now. Also, you would get to recruit any rebels that you were able to match a dice to. Let's say that you were able to recruit this rebel and he had some damage on him. At the end of this phase, you would get to recruit your rebel, bring him over to your team, and heal all damage. He will now join the blue team. In the same way, if an Imperial has already all of his damage counters assigned to him, he would be defeated. And you would add it to a stack of your defeated Imperials. At the end of your turn, we refill any open spots, and player's turn is over. We continue on to the next player. You will continue to do this until you reach either a winning condition or a losing condition. In order to beat the game, you're required to defeat a certain number of Imperials. The base game asks you to defeat 7 out of the 11 Imperials that are included in the base game. However, you can increase the difficulty by having to defeat more Imperials, all the way up to having to defeat all the 11 Imperials in order for you to win the game. You can also increase the difficulty by starting the game with 1 component on each of the squares around the Death Star. You can lose the game in 1 of 3 ways. The first one would be if all of the Death Star is fully operational and you've turned all of the components to their active side. You can also lose the game if Darth Vader or the Imperials have defeated 10 rebels. Every time Darth Vader gets to a location, remember, he adds a damage to the rebels in that location. And Imperials will also add to that damage. Keep a stack of the rebels that have been defeated, so you can keep count of how many the Imperials have taken down. The last way you can lose is if one player loses all of the rebels on their team. Other things you need to know is that every time you assign damage to an Imperial, you get a reward. And the reward is an alliance token. Now these can be used except during the turn on which they were gained. Alliance tokens can grant you more dice, symbols that you can use to recruit rebels or damage Imperials, and even healing for your damaged rebels. There are also tokens that let you take cubes out of the Death Star components, which can help you slow down the Imperials. And it's important to remember that these alliance tokens can be used during somebody else's turn, so the rebels are really trying to help each other out. Once you recruit a rebel to your team, you might be able to use an ability he has if you assign this die to it. Instead of putting a die out on the board to recruit a rebel or to inflict damage on an Imperial, you can assign a die here and immediately resolve this effect. For example, this one will help you heal. This game lasts about 30 to 45 minutes and you can play with your whole family. Go and try it out. Well guys, I hope that helped you learn how to play Star Wars Dark Side Rising. Like I said before, there is a full run through on the channel so you can check that out to get a better idea of how the game flows. Hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to learn how to play another game, let me know in the comments below. I'll see you all on the next one. But until then, may you play more games.